Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to take a look at creating a modern open filter base which kind of opens up really quickly and then shuts down, just like this one that we're going to hear right now. So you can hear the filter opens up, it's got a lot of detune, then it pretty much closes almost instantly just to give you a little taster and a breather of that full signal and then back down to a sub-level. So I've got two layers in this particular part, and if you're wondering about presets, these are the February 2021 presets on Patreon. So if you support, I think it's $3, you get the presets, and if you support $5, you get the MIDI as well that is featured in this. And we're going to recreate what I have called the wow filter bass, and we're going to recreate that in Sylenth. So let's take the bass here and we're going to loop this section. Let's just have a listen to the original. So we've got a nice solid sound that kind of carries itself, and then obviously supported by some sub layers, it starts to sound really nice. And the first thing that we need to do is set up oscillator 1. So we are going to use 2 possibly, but 1 is enough. So let's just turn the volume down, even though the voice is on 0 and we know that is not operational. We want it on a saw wave and we want to increase the voices to 8. We'll just go for the full shabam that Sylenth offers and uncheck retrig. So we get this sound. I'm going to drop the width because we're working primarily as a bass sound, so we don't want too much stereo width. So let's just hit a lower key. Sounding okay, so it's not quite there, so let's increase the detune. So we're getting there, that's sounding where we want it, but now we don't want the filter to be open. So we're going to use the filters here and we're going to set this to oscillator A, which is default. We're going to leave it on a 24 slope and we're going to set it to low pass. So there we are, we've got that. So let's set up a bit of drive. I'm just going to set this to 50%. So it's giving it a little bit of power. And before we move on to using mod env1 to control the opening of the filter, we're going to set the cutoff to a position that we want it to finish at. Which sounds about right there. We're just going to change the octave here just to account for the notes being higher up on the actual MIDI. Okay, so sounding pretty good. That little roll of notes doesn't sound as effective, but it will once we hit the mod envelope. Okay, so we're going to set this to cutoff A, and we'll introduce just a little bit there for now. So you can hear it's opened it, but it's not really doing anything because we've only got the sustain at 100%. Let's bring this down. And I'm going to create a shape like this. We want the amp to actually have a slower attack. I'm going to bring up the decay above that amp. So we can hear it acting. And what I'll do is I will just move these sliders around so you can hear how the shape starts to form, and then you can get an idea of when you recreate this yourself. Bring a bit more in. So what we're using here, this dial for, is how much of that signal is fed into the mod envelope and how much that mod envelope is going to sweep through the remaining section of this cutoff here. So this bit that's in the dark is the bit that this is actually pushing through. So if we increase this, starting this from 0 here, actually, this is 0 point where it's currently set. Anything from that to there is going to open the filter to 100%. So we don't want to go all the way, but we want it to open up so we can hear all of that detune, and then it closes back down. And we can make that more subtle the lower we go. So we want it to be nice and bright, and we've achieved that just there. So we can make this a little bit brighter. We'll use some of the built-in effects as well. And that's pretty much the sound made. You can just tweak around with the mod envelope till you get it right. Like if we just look at the track here and actually play the kick. I'm just going to turn on evade. Let's listen to the original. So it's a little bit slower, and the reason that it sounds different in terms of not having any low end is because I've EQ'd it out for this particular demo. So let's jump back in, and we want this to be a little bit slower. So I'm just increasing the decay. And there we have it. I like the sound of that one. Okay, let's start with the EQ, and I'm just going to drop the bass by about that much, somewhere about there, and then we're going to set this to around 100 Hertz for now. And I'm going to drop the treble as well. It's a little bit too bright on the top end, so we're going to hone this in at the higher range. Bring this down. Just taking that sparkly edge off the top to give it a more sense of being a low instrument, but not interfering with everything else that operates in the higher frequencies, such as the hats, the rides, and things like that. So it just takes that edge off that top end. So we're now going to introduce some distortion, and the distortion that I tend to use a lot is decimate to add some character into the sound, but this particular sound I think is just going to suit either overdrive or clip. So let's try overdrive. Bring this down. So it acts a bit like it's compressing the signal because it's going through the overdrive, and it's actually adding a lot of harmonic extras into that, which makes it sound a little bit grittier and has a little bit more of an attitude. And this is what we're usually hearing in progressive trance at the moment, just the simple use of opening the filter on a detuned bass. Okay, so the next thing that they add is reverb. Now, it's very iffy in where in the chain that we add the reverb, especially when it's in the synth. If it's providing a sort of sound design aspect, then this is where it will reside. If we want this reverb to be like a finisher, a polish reverb as I'd call it, as opposed to a sound design reverb, then I would include it later on in the chain wherever I want it to appear. Because as we know, if we use the reverb at the synth level, it's at the start of the chain coming in right at the beginning. So you can see evade there. The reverb is going to be side-chained. If you don't want the reverb sidechained, then you're going to have to add in after. Now, adding reverb in this way gives it a small room effect, and that makes it stand out even more in the track because it sounds, even though it's got reverb, it sounds dry compared to the rest of the sounds that could be like floating around it, such as the plucks and the leads. They might have a lot of polish reverb on there just to give them atmosphere and give them a space in the mix. So we're doing the same, we're giving it a space, but we're also making it like a bit present. So it's going, I'm here, this is me, I am the focus of the track. Okay, so we can hear that as dramatically drop the level, and let me just walk you through what I've done. Starting with the pre-delay, I dropped this to 0, and that's so I can hear how the reverb is sounding, and then when we start moving that pre-delay around, we can hear how that's reacting to the sound. Is that going to be slower or faster? Which one sounds better for our particular need? So a little bit of pre-delay there just stops the reverb hitting straight away and just gives it a little bit of time to be heard after the sound. Then you can see that I didn't really go to dampening first, went to the size, brought the size down, brought the width down. We're using a bass, we don't want a wide reverb, so I've dropped the width, not down to 0, but just narrowed the stereo field of that reverb, and then obviously matched the size to sort of a room sound, like a small room. The dry wet is increased so we can hear the effect of the reverb a little bit better. And then finally a bit of dampening on there, and all that's doing is shaving off that higher end. So you can see that we removed that in the EQ. We actually dropped the treble level at the 16,000 hertz mark, and then the distortion, added it in again, so it kind of puts it back what we've taken away. And then the reverb, you can see it practically destroys and undoes what we've done there. So a bit of dampening just to shave off the top end, and then we're going to dial the dry wet back. So we can hear the reverb, but it's not as much as that we would want, and we can use compression to bring that out if we want, because we all know that the compression is bringing the peaks down and bringing the lower sounds up to an equilibrium, so we can hear everything sort of equally or where we choose to place them. Let's have a listen to that in context with our pluck synth here. Okay, so it's sounding pretty good. It's not as refined as this one. I spent quite a lot of time refining this particular preset, but we've got the majority of everything that we need there. And you can download this preset for free. I will put this in the Sylenth section of the free presets. And there we have it. That is the end of this tutorial. If you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below. Also hit the like button and subscribe and the bell icon if you haven't already, so you get notified straight away as soon as I upload. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.